Hey there, boy. What are you doing here? Hello, sir. I'm just doing some shopping. Is that right? What are those sticks for? You planning on robbing this store? No, sir. I would never do that. These are my crutches. I have a disability. His eyes narrowed at me, and he lightly kicked one of my crutches. Seems to me like maybe I should search your pockets and make sure that you aren't stealing anything. He then pushed my crutches aside and started patting me down. It was so incredibly embarrassing. When he found my wallet, he pulled it out and began rifling through it, and then pulled out my money. I wasn't sure if he was going to take my money for a second, to be honest. This isn't a lot of money. How do I know that you weren't going to steal something? I would never steal anything. You can ask the owner. I come here all the time. You think I would believe the word of some black kid? Hi there. My name is Tim, and I've had a bit of a challenging life. I was born with cerebral palsy, and it has made moving around quite difficult, but my mother has always been able to inspire me and keep me motivated to keep going. Honestly, if it wasn't for her, I'm not so sure that I would be as outgoing and strong as I am. Of course, that isn't to say that I haven't had my fair share of setbacks. For starters, the children in school always tease and torment me. I need to use crutches to get around, and the children at my school often tease me about them. Being 16 and having cerebral palsy is not easy, and the bullies at school make sure that I never get too comfortable. There was one time when a classmate of mine, Chad, attacked me and stole my crutches from me. Oh well, look at that. Poor little Tim decided to come to school today. I can't believe that they let you just walk into our school with those. Don't they know that they could very easily be used as weapons? They aren't weapons, Chad. I need them in order to be able to walk. They were prescribed to me by my doctor. As if. I have no doubt that as a black kid that you just stole them off of someone who is actually crippled. I know that your brain is messed up, but you don't look like you need those crutches. I bet you can walk around just fine without them. Well, you would be wrong. My leg muscles and spine can't support me, so I need them. Now please just leave me alone. I'm trying to get to class. Typical black kid, always lying. My dad told me all about how you people just can't help it. As if saying such hurtful things wasn't enough, he grabbed my crutches away from me and then pushed me to the ground. It was so incredibly painful, but I couldn't fight back. He then walked away with my crutches and just laughed at me. Thankfully, some other students saw what he had done and ran after him, and eventually got my crutches back, and so I was able to make my way to class. Sadly, that wasn't the first time that Chad had picked on me. He was such a terror, and I could only imagine how bad his father must be, since he was obviously the one teaching Chad how to be a bully. As limiting as my disability can be, though, I always try to do things on my own as much as possible. One day, I was heading down to get a few things from the corner store. We needed some bread and milk, and while it wasn't some of the most important things in the world, it made me feel needed to help out as much as possible. And so, I went down to the store, and as I was gathering up the few things I needed, I noticed a police officer standing at the counter talking to the owner. I waited behind him for my turn, but he was taking forever until he finally noticed me. His eyes went up and down as he carefully looked at my crutches. Hey there, boy. What are you doing here? Hello, sir. I'm just doing some shopping. Is that right? What are those sticks for? You planning on robbing this store? No, sir. I would never do that. These are my crutches. I have a disability. His eyes narrowed at me, and he lightly kicked one of my crutches. Seems to me like maybe I should search your pockets and make sure that you aren't stealing anything. He then pushed my crutches aside and started patting me down. It was so incredibly embarrassing. When he found my wallet, he pulled it out and began rifling through it, and then pulled out my money. I wasn't sure if he was going to take my money for a second, to be honest. This isn't a lot of money. How do I know that you weren't going to steal something? I would never steal anything. You can ask the owner. I come here all the time. You think I would believe the word of some black kid? The way that he said it made me pause for a second. I suddenly had a suspicion that this cop was my bully's father, and sure enough, a few seconds later, Chad walked into the store. Hey Dad, what's taking so long? Just found this suspicious black kid and was making sure that he wasn't going to cause any trouble. So boy, are you going to cause any trouble? No, sir. I just came to buy a few groceries, and then I was going to go straight home. Wait, I know this kid from school. He's always getting into trouble there. Picking fights and stealing things from other students. You better arrest him, Dad. See, I knew it.
Just like I always say, son, you can't trust their kind. Get on the ground now, boy.
Chad had always been cruel, but for him to lie and say those things about me felt like a new low for him. I was terrified, and I knew that I needed to obey the cop, or else he might get violent with me. But I was so scared that I became paralyzed and stood still. Suddenly, Chad shoved me to the ground, and while I was lying there, the cop put handcuffs on me.
Okay, son, you keep an eye on him. I'm going out to the car to radio in for a patrol car to take him downtown. I will, Dad. No need to rush, though.
As soon as his father stepped outside, Chad began kicking me while I was on the ground and couldn't defend myself. I wondered why the store owner wasn't doing anything, when suddenly he came around the counter and started shouting at Chad to stop.
Listen, I don't want any trouble, but this kid didn't do anything. I see him all the time, and he's one of the most honest customers I have. Yeah, well, unless you want to go to jail as well. I suggest you mind your own damn business.
Just then, Chad's father came back inside and picked me up and dragged me outside. Chad picked up my crutches, and once we were outside, he snapped them in half. His father just laughed at what Chad had done, and then he began to pad me down again.
Oh, look what I found here, a knife and a ski mask. I guess you were planning on something after all. It's a good thing that I was there, or else you were going to rob the place, weren't you?
No, I would never do that. Plus, I couldn't. My arms aren't strong enough to hurt anyone else. You planted that knife and mask on me.
Maybe I did, but it's your word against ours, and no judge is going to believe you.
They just started laughing when a police squad car pulled up, and the officers inside took a look at me and then gently put me into the back of the car and drove me downtown. I could tell that they really didn't want to arrest me, but Chad's father insisted that they did. I ended up being thrown into a holding cell with several adult criminals. Amazingly, they noticed that I was having a hard time moving around, and they showed me compassion and helped me to sit up and get comfortable. After a few hours, my mother showed up, and after spending several hours talking with the police, she was allowed to take me home. On the ride there, I told her everything that had happened, and she was beyond furious. She told me that she would take care of everything, but I wasn't about to let her do all the hard work. There was no way that I was going to let Chad and his father get away with what they had done to me. It was bad enough for Chad to be racist and cruel to me, but now his father a police officer as well. Something had to be done. The next day, even though I was sore, I went back to the convenience store and I spoke with the clerk that had tried to defend me. He apologized for not being able to help me more. I accepted the apology, as he really didn't have a choice. If he had intervened, then he would have probably been arrested too. Instead, I asked him if the cameras caught any of what happened on tape. He smiled broadly and pulled out a flash drive from under the counter and passed it to me, and told me that not only did the cameras record what happened in the store, but also what happened outside as well, and the recording included audio. I thanked him and then went home and made a few copies of the files on the flash drive. I then uploaded the files onto a few social media sites along with the caption, "Racist cop and son attack innocent disabled black boy." Once I had done that, I asked my mom to go down to the police station to file a complaint against Chad's father and to press charges against the both of them for what they did to me. At first, the officers there were hesitant, but once they looked at the recordings I had, they changed their tune and began asking more questions. When I finally left, they were making plans to haul Chad and his father to the station for questioning. By then, the story was beginning to go viral on the social media sites that I had posted it to, and people began demanding something be done to Chad and his father. The public wanted blood, and they wanted those two men to pay for hurting me the way they did. Between the public demanding that justice be done and the evidence that I had provided to the police, they were forced to arrest both Chad and his father. Since Chad was a minor like me, he was sent to juvenile hall and was forced to do over 1,000 hours of community service. From what I heard, once he was released from juvenile hall, he and his mother moved across the country to try to start new lives since people continued to harass him, even though he had spent 2 years locked up. His father fared much worse though. He lost his job and was sentenced to spend 8 years in prison for abusing his power, and for not only letting his son assault me, but encouraging it as well. Being a cop in prison is a very dangerous thing, and he was nearly beaten to death a few times as well. One time, an inmate that was sent to prison because of him had stabbed him, but he luckily survived and now lives in fear. As for me, I learned a very hard lesson from this experience. and I swore that I would use it to help others. I have since attended law school, and I have become a lawyer to help those people that have become victims of people like Chad and his father. So although the experience traumatized me, it has helped me to become a stronger person and has given me the strength to help others. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe and leave a comment down below saying I subscribed, and we will try our best to reply to your comment.